Gay!
For those of you who don't know, I live in Upside Down Land in Australia. In the centre of Upside Down Land, we get hardly any movies at all. If we're lucky though, we get some indie movies, but a lot of what we get are blockbusters. So in comes the Travelling Film Festival, allowing regional cities the opportunity to watch movies that they would otherwise not have the chance to see. I was lucky enough to watch 5 of the 9 movies at this festival, so I decided let's just go through them then. Ba-bam! The first movie I watched was Hearts and Bones, and it was alright. I really wanted to like Hearts and Bones more than I did. It's a debut from an Australian director, and because I'm Australian, I want to support these directors wherever I can. And it's okay. The director has a lot of potential in the future. There are some performances in the movie that were great. It's about a photojournalist who takes photos of intense scenarios around the world that in certain environments we would just simply not have the possibility to see. So the idea is that the photojournalist brings light to these issues that we would not be able to see. And I love those type of movies for sure. I love experiencing things that I would never, ever experience, and that's just an open book for film. The movie is about the photojournalist who comes across this member of an African family who finds photos of his tribe which he doesn't want to be viewed publicly. And it's interesting. The movie idea and concept is interesting. There are a lot of hiccups though, a lot of problems that I wish I could forgive. For example, there are some great performances from Hugo Weaving in the movie, and other times there's not. There's a scene at the beginning where he has to react harshly and say no, instead of being very passionate about it. I feel like there could have been a second take or so, like, instead it just sounds like The film also has an acting debut by Andrew Lurie, and again, he has a mixed performance. There's some scenes I'm like, wow, this is so great. He shows lots of potential for the future, and then there are other times where it just could have had a second take, and that's where I feel a lot of the problems lie. Just the lack of a second take, because I feel like if they were just a little bit more precise, there would be much more opportunity for greatness in this movie. One of the main problems I found was that the main character was not as enjoyable to follow as the secondary character. The secondary character had so much more potential. When you see him with his family, it feels so wholesome and natural, whereas Hugo Weaving's character feels like he could have been fleshed out a little bit more. It's weird, he gets more screen time, but not as much character depth to me anyway. There were some fantastic shots in the movie. When you're gonna have a story about a photographer, you better have great cinematography, and it really showed. There were some great framing devices when you're displaying a conversation from outside of a room, so you've got the door frame in the way, but the door frame blocks certain elements, and it just, it's great. Even though there was some great framing, there was some story elements that just don't work so well. Alfred Hitchcock has that famous quote of showing the gun in the first scene and then having it occur later, and without spoiling anything, we don't see the gun in the first scene unless I possibly missed something, and if I missed something, I'm willing to take the blame for that for sure, but what can you do? Other than that, the story did show great juxtaposition between characters and themes and just identities, and in that sense, it was great. It's just a shame because I really wanted to like this more than I did. Some of the extras didn't feel like they were part of the environment. They just feel like they were told, oh, you're having fun, dance! There's not much more I can really say. I'm not going to watch it again. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Next up was Honeyland, and oh boy, that was great. I really loved Honeyland. Honeyland follows the story of a documentary crew just following honey farmer? Bee farmer? Just their day-to-day life, how they collect the honey and how they sell it, and how this farmer maintains a connection between the environment and her wealth or lack thereof. One thing I loved so much about the movie was the fact that it was more of a movie than it was a documentary. You didn't have any interviews, you didn't have any characters going, NANI? It makes it look like you're viewing the everyday lives of these characters and how they interact with the environment. The story slowly drips. We're not told straight off the bat what the story is, and because of that, we just feel a connection to these characters, but they don't feel like they're people putting on a show for the camera. They just feel like natural people, and that's what you want to try to capture with the documentary. And it does it well. It does it beautifully with such beautiful shots. There's a lack of a soundtrack in the movie. There's no music at all except for when someone gets a radio playing. The lack of music really adds to the isolation of this character. The character is in the middle of nowhere with only their animals that they're taking care of. Another thing as well is each of the characters that are slowly introduced into the story all have a lot of flaws. There's so much chemistry between the characters. They're not perfect people, and that's what makes us connect to them, because they're not perfect. And there's a lot of relatability between the mother and the daughter, and it's very cute, and it's hard not to watch those scenes without smiling with joy, just from how much it reminds you of your relationship with your mother or your grandmother. Without spoiling anything, there's a lot of very harsh, dry scenes that show up. Due to the camera placement, the framing, it does evoke harsh emotions, harsh realities, and at points you could argue it could be a bit much, but at the same time it's a documentary. You want to be showing these things because what's the point in hiding the truth? As much as I did love the movie, there were some segments that felt a bit slow at points. They could have cut out maybe 10 minutes, but I feel on a second viewing I would like the movie even more. I haven't seen the movie for a few days, and since I've seen it, it's been on my mind quite a bit. It's one of my favorite movies from the festival, but definitely not number one. Even though the movie was a bit long, it is quite impressive with how much they would have had to cut. Apparently they shot 400 hours worth of footage, which is, you know, it's more than a lot, and trying to trim as much of that fat down into a 100-minute movie is a tough job, and I feel like the director did a great job here. In the end, I find myself thinking about the movie more and more, so I can't wait to watch it again. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. When Tomatoes Met Wagner, which I'm most likely mispronounced, was very I really wanted to like it more than I did. But at the end of the day, I just couldn't really care about the story, and that's just me personally. When I talk about these movies and how much I like them, it's just me personally. You may find a connection there. But anyway, the story just centers on these tomato farmers who want to try growing tomatoes through the use of Wagner's music. And I love music so much. In terms of the movie though, the movie doesn't seem to go anywhere. You can argue the same thing with the last movie, Honeyland, where the story doesn't seem to progress until it gets to the very end, where you have to reflect on the movie. And by the end of this movie, I was just struggling to see the points. Again, it's not god awful. I just wanted to like it more. I just couldn't care much. The cinematography is very hit and miss. Sometimes you have some, that's a pretty good shot, and then the rest of the time it was just passable. You didn't get a great idea of the scale of both the fields the farmers were in or the situations they were in. So it was just a struggle to connect with their drama, basically. I might give When Tomatoes Met Wagner a 5 out of 10. On top of that, we've shown a quick short, and I'm not going to say too much about it. It's called Tungrus. It's about a family living with a chicken. It's very cute. Holy crap. A lot of people hate the ending. It's on YouTube. I'll leave a link down in the bottom. You can watch it if you want. If you just want a fun time, it's very cute, very funny. There's lots of great framing in it. I love. It's one of those scenes where it's not just an animal being cute that makes it funny. It's how the camera is positioned that adds to the humor, similarly to Edgar Wright's form of comedy.
So one method my dad learned to shut up the rooster is that when the rooster starts crowing, you just run behind the rooster. That's all I see my dad doing with the rooster.
पकड़ना वो एक्चुअली एक आर्ट है. नॉर्मली हमारी गांव की जो मुर्गियां हम लोग जब पकड़ते थे तो वो जमीन पे ही करते थे, लेकिन इसने एक नई चीज सीखी है कि वो फ्लाइट लेता है.
But a lot of people hated the ending, so just a warning. I don't care. Check it out! 7 out of 10. The truth follows a grandmother who's very famous for the work that she's done, living a life of lies. And when releasing a book, she's displaying all of the lies about her family and making it seem like she's a much more loving grandmother to her daughter and her granddaughter. So the family comes along to intervene about that. This movie has a great script. There's a lot of quotes that just stood out and just stick with you so much. Lines that I would just slap on my quote wall. It's just another movie that's very charming. What makes the script so great is the fact that all the characters felt like they had flaws. No one felt perfect, and at first you hate the grandmother just for how much she lies to everyone and how much she's trying to live this perfect life, similarly to that of BoJack Horseman. Except, unlike BoJack, there's a lot more charm in this character, so take that with a grain of salt, whether or not you want someone who's super flawed, who keeps fucking up their life, it's your call. That being said, the movie is really funny. There's a lot of quirks that all the characters have that are unique to their characters. For example, the way the grandmother tries to convince the granddaughter that all the animals in her yards used to be her maids, and because they did a bad job, she turned them into pets to try to keep the child in line. And it's just very funny, but also cute. It's the type of movie that really grows on you over time. It had a very rocky beginning, but once the story came along, it flew by perfectly. It's one of those movies that I wouldn't have watched. I had a 5 movie pass. I was tossing up this one or Out Stealing Horses. I think I forgot what it was called, and I flipped a coin and chose this one, and I'm glad I watched it in the end. That's why I enjoy this festival, because sometimes you'll pick up something that you didn't think you'd like as much as you did, and I loved this movie. I thought it was great. It was very charming, very fun. There's subtle motifs and symbolism between certain characters and their actions, and it's the type of movie I'd recommend if you enjoy movies like Pride and Prejudice. It's just the type of movie that's like a Sunday afternoon movie, something you just want to throw on and relax. It's got themes, but it's not trying to make you feel depressed. It's just relaxing. If you just want something relaxing with a good script, good performances, and just funny, dramatic story, a dramedy, if you will, it'd be up your alley. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Now, here's the big guns. Favorite movie of the Traveling Film Festival is Fantasy Island. Fuck off. It is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and oh boy, what a movie. I was keen from this from day one, and it surpassed my expectations. The movie has been directed by Celine Sciamma, which I most likely mispronounced, and she's most popular for writing and directing movies with very innocent characters going through lots of themes, such as one of my favorite animated movies, My Life as a Zucchini, which is very charming, very fun. Watch it by yourself before you show kids. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a movie I heard about, and as soon as I saw the poster, I told myself I am not going to look up any of the promotional material. I do not want to look up any of the storylines. I just want to go in completely blind, and I'm so glad I did. The movie has a fantastic screenplay. It won the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Screenplay, and it definitely deserves it. There's a lot of very formal dialogue that is used in the movie that really builds on the relationship between these characters. There's hardly any dialogue in the beginning of the movie. The movie centers on these main female leads just trying to form relationships with one another. Without spoiling anything, the movie focuses on a painter trying to paint a royal, and the way the relationships build off of these characters is so natural, and it's so hard not to connect with these characters. The dialogue feels very 18th century. There were a lot of poetic devices that build off of each other. It felt like I was listening to, in some ways, a Shakespearean monologue between these characters, the way that they bounce off of each other. I don't want to say anything, because it is one of those movies. It's one of those movies that I don't want to hype up too much. It's not story heavy. There's lots of scenes of just the character painting away, and there's a certain rhythm to the painting. It's similar to that in Titanic, whereas Titanic was much more fast paced and brought it ultimately to a climax. The way the character starts painting away builds up on their personality. You feel like you're learning the character as they're painting. It's the biggest flaw with movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, where we assume that this artist just came up with their song at the top of their head. Freddie Mercury was sad one day, so he looked out of a window and he just started singing Bohemian Rhapsody, and tears started falling down his face. Like, fuck off. Art is a process. It builds up over time. No art is created like that. It takes time. A lot of people hate what they make when they start because they weren't as experienced, so they build up on it. Look at my first video, it's shit, but I still love it because of how shit it was. I'm building off of what I learned. It's one of those movies that's all about the subtleties and nuances within. The way these characters interact with each other are so precise. It feels like you're looking at a portrait. The way someone may raise an eyebrow reveals so much about what they're thinking than what they could possibly ever say. Everyone just gave a stellar performance. Every emotion everyone was feeling felt so relatable. Nearly everyone has been in this situation before. By the end of the movie, I was holding onto my breath because I was freaking out for everyone involved. It quite literally took my breath away. I was a bit worried at the beginning because the start is very slow. You are drip-fed information slowly. You're not told everything about the character straight off the bat. I would encourage everyone watching it to hold on to it. I'm just gonna throw a quick spoiler alert. I'm not gonna spoil anything major, but if you want to go in completely blind, skip to this part of the video and we'll continue from there. I went in knowing about the fact that this was an LGBT movie. The movie is about a relationship between these two females during this very, let's say, stressful time period, but nothing feels forced, and I love the fact that nothing feels forced in this movie. So whenever their relationship builds, it feels natural. You feel the stress you would feel in a relationship when you don't know if you have these feelings with these people, and that's what I love so much about it. What the fuck is that train doing? There's also some just fantastic editing and sound editing that really emphasize how much of a jump the stress is within this environment. Again, like Honeyland, there's no music in the movie, and it adds to the isolation. And whenever there is music, it's performed in the scene, and there's a certain rhythm to this movie, and it's perfect. It's like we're watching beat after beat after beat. It really hit me personally. Overall, it was a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, and it's the one that I was so glad I got the chance to see at a festival. I'm giving it a solid 9 out of 10. I'm so keen to show it to friends and to watch it again. Overall, I'm just so glad I got to watch this movie as well as all of the movies in the festival. Even though I didn't like movies like When Tomatoes Met Wagner, I still enjoy the fact that I watched them. I'm glad I got to check this festival out. I hope to check it out next time, and I hope to watch more movies in the future. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Either way, I'm glad you watched it all this way. Thank you for watching, and if you like what I like, hit subscribe. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, let me know. I am keen to watch movies as a whole.